Welcome to Pod Studio, level up your fluency from trending topics. Today we are going to talk about Google Gemini, the definitive guide.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are diving deep into, well, the massive, sprawling world of Google's Gemini suite.
It's definitely sprawling.
Yeah, and if you're following tech news at all, you know the AI landscape is less a competitive market and more like a full-contact cage match these days.
That's one way to put it.
We've got OpenAI's ChatGPT, Meta's Llama, Microsoft's Copilot, all fighting for supremacy, and Gemini is really Google's biggest swing yet.
It absolutely is. And the sheer volume of models, apps, integrations, it can be, frankly, overwhelming.
Totally.
So our goal today is really to give you the operational map, the shortcut to understanding what Gemini actually is at its core.
Okay.
How it's structurally tiered, from these huge desktop workhorses down to tiny chips on your phone, and how it's, aggressively colonizing pretty much every corner of the Google ecosystem you might rely on.
Let's start right at the foundation then. Before we even get into the apps people use, what's the fundamental tech shift here? What makes Gemini next gen compared to, say, their older text-only model, LaMDA?
Okay. The key concept, the buzzword, if you like, is native multimodality.
Native multimodality.
This is the new baseline, the technological floor. Previous models, LaMDA, for example, were primarily trained on text. They could only generate text. It was kind of like reading a script and trying to visualize the whole movie from just that. Gemini, on the other hand, was pre-trained right from the start, simultaneously on a massive variety of data, text, audio, images, video, even code bases, all at once.
Okay, so why does that simultaneous training matter so much? Isn't multimodality just, processing a picture and writing a caption for it, like we've seen before?
It's actually fundamentally more powerful than that. Think of the difference between asking an old model to describe a movie scene,
right,
which meant you'd probably have to feed it the script text first, versus asking Gemini to essentially watch the scene. It understands the tone, the action, the dialogue, the visual context, all together natively.
Yeah, I see.
So when the model is natively multimodal, it just gets the connection between, say, the image of a cat and the word cat instantly. It doesn't have to learn those connections separately later on.
And that leads to better reasoning.
How much deeper reasoning and, crucially, better accuracy when you're dealing with complex real-world inputs that aren't just text.
Okay, that clarifies the core engine difference. So let's unpack the different flavors of the model itself, this hierarchy we hear about, Ultra, Pro, Flash, Nano. What are they each built for?
Right. Think of it like Google tailoring a specific engine for every single vehicle they own, from a massive truck down to a scooter.
Okay.
At the very top, you've got Gemini Ultra. That's the heavyweight champion, the largest, most capable model. Though, funnily enough, we haven't actually seen Ultra much in the wild lately. It's currently sort of missing in action from the public API pricing and the consumer apps, but it represents that absolute top tier of raw capability.
The theoretical maximum may be waiting in the wings.
Got it. So what's the real workhorse model that people are actually using right now?
That would be Gemini Pro. And the current flagship version is Gemini 2.0 Pro.
Okay.
Google's positioning this as its best model yet, particularly for complex prompts, reasoning tasks, and especially coding.
Right.
We've seen benchmarks showing it outperforms earlier Pro versions in programming, math, factual recall, that kind of thing.
And developers can use this one.
Yes. Pro is the powerhouse they can access via Vertex AI. They can customize it, fine-tune it, ground it in their own specific company data. It's built for that kind of serious development work.
Okay. So Pro is for the heavy lifting, customization. Now, moving down the scale, I assume speed becomes more of a priority. That brings us to Flash.
Exactly. Gemini Flash and its slightly smaller sibling, Flashlight, are all about speed and efficiency.
Okay.
They're essentially distilled versions of Pro, optimized for high-frequency tasks where you need an answer like now.
Such as, think rapid summarization, running large-scale chat applications, quick data extraction, generating image or video captions very fast. Things you do often and quickly.
But hang on, I read about something called flash thinking. That sounds like it deliberately slows down the flash idea. Why would you sacrifice speed in a model that's designed to be fast?
That's a really great question, and it points towards the constant balancing act between speed and reliability in AI.
Okay.
Flash thinking is designed to improve reliability, especially for non-creative tasks. Things like complex logic problems or really rigorous data extraction, or even coding assistance.
How does it do that?
It basically dedicates a few extra seconds to internal processing. It sort of works backward through the problem, double-checks its steps before spitting out the final answer.
Yeah.
So if pure speed sometimes compromises accuracy, flash thinking is like saying, okay, let's take just a moment to check our math. The idea is you get higher quality outputs, more trustworthy outputs, where precision really matters, even in these high-speed applications.
Interesting. It's like automated critical thinking. That's compelling trade-off. But maybe the biggest difference for our day-to-day lives comes at the very bottom of the scale. Gemini Nano.
Absolutely. Nano, which comes in Nano 1 and Nano 2 versions, is tiny. It's designed to run entirely on the device.
On your phone.
Exactly. Directly on your smartphone, like the Pixel phones, for instance. No cloud connection needed for its core functions.
And that fact that it runs offline, that feels really critical. Why should the average person care if the AI engine is running locally versus somewhere up in the cloud?
Well, two big reasons. Immediate utility and privacy.
Okay.
Take the Summarize feature in the Recorder app on Pixel. You can record a, say, 2-hour meeting or lecture, hit a button, and get a summary instantly. Even if you're on a plane or deep underground with zero Wi-Fi or cell signal, the utility is just there.
Right. No waiting for uploads or downloads.
Exactly. And maybe more importantly, privacy. Since all the processing happens right there on your device, none of your potentially sensitive recorded audio ever leaves your phone.
That addresses a huge user concern right there.
It really does. It tackles those privacy worries head on for specific tasks.
Okay, so the engine itself, the models, are highly specialized across these different sizes. But how does all that power actually, show up when we open an app? Let's clarify that model versus app distinction.
Yeah, this is vital to understand. The Gemini apps, which, remember, used to be called Bard.
Wait, the chatbot.
They are simply the client interfaces. They're the front ends, the chat window you interact with.
Okay.
Those apps connect to the appropriate Gemini model, like Pro or Flash, running on Google servers on the back end. It's basically like how your web browser connects to different websites or web services. The app is the window. The model is the engine behind the scenes.
And Google is making sure we can access this app pretty much everywhere, right? How are they integrating it into our daily routines?
Oh, aggressively. On Android, the Gemini app is basically replacing the traditional Google Assistant.
Right, I've seen that prompt.
You summon it by holding the power button or using the Hey Google voice command. And crucially, it often works as an overlay.
What do you mean, overlay?
It means you can invoke Gemini over whatever app you're currently using. So you could be looking at a complex PDF or watching a YouTube video, and you ask Gemini about what's on your screen right then and there without having to switch apps. It sees your context.
That's pretty seamless. What about iOS users?
On iOS, you access it through the main Google app, the search app, and of course there's a dedicated web portal too.
And conversations carry over.
Yes, which is huge for usability. Your chat history stays consistent whether you start on your phone and continue on the web or vice versa.
Okay, let's talk premium then. For our listeners, the learners, who really want to squeeze maximum utility out of this technology, we get to Gemini Advanced. What justifies that, $20 a month, Google One AI premium plan?
Right, so with Advanced, you generally get access to the most sophisticated model Google has available at that moment. But the real value, I think, is in the exclusive features they bundle in.
Like what?
Well, for power users, a big one is the ability to run and edit live Python code directly within the chat interface.
Wait, inside the chat window. You don't have to copy-paste to a separate environment.
Exactly. You can write code, run it, see the output, debug it, all within the Gemini Advanced conversation. That removes a massive friction point for anyone doing data analysis, coding experiments, that sort of thing.
Wow, okay. What else?
You also get significantly increased usage limits for Notebook LM, which is Google's AI-powered research and writing tool. And they've added a memory feature.
Memory? How does that work?
It allows Gemini to store specific preferences or facts you tell it about yourself, like where you live, dietary restrictions, your preferred tone for writing emails, project details. And then it refers back to that stored information automatically in future conversations to provide more personalized and context-aware responses without you having to repeat yourself constantly.
That could be genuinely useful. But you mentioned one feature was the biggest differentiator for Advanced.
Yes, absolutely. It's the deep research feature.
The sources we looked at really highlighted this one. Why is deep research supposedly so much better than just doing a standard Google search or asking the regular Gemini Pro for information?
Because it leans heavily on that advanced reasoning capability we talked about. If you give it a complex, high-stakes kind of prompt, let's say, Develop a comprehensive marketing plan for launching a new eco-friendly product line.
Okay.
Deep research doesn't just pull up a few relevant links or give you a quick, maybe speculative answer. It actually first develops a multi-step research plan.
It plans its own research.
Precisely. It figures out the key questions to ask, the types of information needed, the sequence to look things up. Then it executes targeted web searches based on that plan. And finally, it synthesizes everything it found into a detailed, structured brief or report.
So it's not just searching, it's building a methodology first. That sounds much more robust.
Exactly. That multi-step planning approach helps mitigate two key weaknesses of many generative AI models. First, it aims for comprehensive coverage, moving beyond just the results of a single initial search query, which might be biased or incomplete.
Right.
And second, it significantly reduces the tendency to hallucinate or make things up, because the model is actively grounding its synthesis in a sequence of specific, targeted information retrieval steps it just performed.
Right.
It's like having an automated, highly rigorous research assistant.
That proactive planning really does sound like a premium feature. Okay, let's zoom out again.
Yeah.
Because the real power, or maybe the strategy of Gemini, seems to be its ubiquity. It's not just this standalone app. It's becoming an AI layer being draped over everything Google touches.
Yeah.
Let's look at those integrations, maybe starting with Google Workspace.
Yeah, the integration within Workspace is astonishingly deep already. In both Docs and Gmail, Gemini often appears as a persistent side panel. In Gmail, it can draft entire emails for you. It can summarize lengthy threads you just got back from vacation to. It can refine your draft based on bullet points you give it.
Basically automating a lot of the tedious writing work.
Totally. And in Docs, same idea. Writing first drafts, refining your existing text, acting as a brainstorming partner, suggesting different angles.
What about spreadsheets? Sheets can be tricky.
It's a potential lifesaver in Sheets. Instead of having to remember complex formulas or how to set up specific data views,
Yeah, the formulas kill me sometimes.
you can use natural language prompts. You can just type something like track project deadlines and highlight any task that's overdue, or create a table comparing monthly sales figures and add a trend line.
And it does it.
It generates the table, figures out the correct formulas, applies the conditional formatting, puts in the chart. It handles the setup. And in Slides, it can generate presentation outlines, draft text for slides, and even create custom images based on your descriptions.
Wow. Even presentations. And Meet.
Google Meet now uses Gemini for real-time translated captions during video calls, breaking down language barriers on the fly.
That's just Workspace. What about the rest of the Google universe?
Well, its tentacles are reaching everywhere. In Google Drive, it can summarize the contents of entire folders or give you the gist of massive individual files like long PDFs or documents without you having to open them.
We could save a lot of time. Maps.
In Maps, you can ask for more complex travel recommendations. Instead of just finding restaurants, you could ask, plan a relaxing afternoon in this neighborhood focused on parks and quiet cafes. It will aggregate reviews, consider locations, and suggest an itinerary. Like mapping out how to spend a day exploring a specific part of a city, potentially optimizing the route between points of interest.
And I heard it's getting baked directly into the Chrome browser experience, too.
Yes, there's an AI writing assistant emerging in Chrome. What makes it potentially quite powerful is that it considers the context of the specific web page you are currently viewing.
How so?
So if you're, say, writing a comment on a news article, the AI knows what the article is about and can offer suggestions for your comment or help you rewrite it based on the content already on the screen. It uses the page context.
Context-aware writing help.
Okay.
And for the really hardcore tech users,
Yeah.
developers, security folks.
Sure. Code Assist, which used to be called Duet AI for developers, is now powered by Gemini models for things like code generation, code completion, explaining code snippets.
Makes sense.
And in the security realm, there's Gemini in threat intelligence. This helps cybersecurity analysts analyze potentially malicious software code, and they can use natural language queries to search for patterns and threats across huge data sets of known malware.
Okay, let's bring it back to the more tactile experience. Things people can do with Gemini right now, maybe on their phones. Talk about Gemini Live. What's that about?
Gemini Live is pitched as a much more interactive, in-depth voice chat experience. You access it on mobile and also through devices like the upcoming Pixel Buds Pro, too.
And what makes it live or interactive?
Its main selling point seems to be the conversational quality. Unlike older voice assistants, where you often had to wait for them to completely finish speaking before you could respond.
Yeah, that lag is annoying.
Live is designed so you can interrupt the chatbot mid-sentence. You can jump in, ask a clarifying question, change the topic slightly, and it's supposed to adapt instantly, making it feel more like a natural back-and-forth conversation.
What would you use that for, though?
Google's pushing it as a kind of virtual coach or partner. You could use it to rehearse for a job interview, brainstorm ideas out loud for a project, or even get real-time feedback on your public speaking practice.
Interesting. And bringing back Nano for a second, we talked about summarize and recorder. What are some other key examples, maybe focusing on safety or privacy, where that on-device AI really shines?
Well, probably the most critical future application is its planned use for scam detection during phone calls on Android.
How would that work?
The idea is that Nano will run locally during your phone call, listening for conversational patterns and specific phrases that are commonly associated with known phone scams like gift card demands or fake tech support urgency.
And it warns you.
It would then provide an on-screen alert warning you that the call might be a scam attempt. And because it's Nano, the key is that none of the actual call audio needs to be sent to the cloud for analysis. It stays private on your phone.
That's a potentially massive safety feature. Anything else already here?
We already see Nano powering smart reply suggestions within Gboard, Google's keyboard app. It suggests relevant, context-aware replies in messaging apps, again, processing the conversation locally to maintain privacy. And future uses point to things like customized weather reports on Pixel devices based on your immediate location and recent activity, all generated on device.
Okay, before we get to the business side and caveats, quickly touch on the custom chatbot features, gems and extensions.
Right. So gems are basically custom chatbots that users, especially advanced subscribers, can create. You give Gemini a specific persona and task using natural language. You can literally tell it, you are a super enthusiastic corgi who helps me plan my hikes, or you are a meticulous editor focused only on grammar. And the gem adopts that personality and specialized focus. You can make them private or share them.
Fun. And extensions.
Extensions are different. They allow the main Gemini app to connect directly to your other Google services like Gmail, YouTube, Maps, Drive, hotels, flights.
Why would you need that?
So you can ask questions that require pulling information from those services. You could ask, summarize my unread emails from the last 24 hours, or find videos on YouTube about making sourdough bread and add them to a playlist, or what were the main points in that document I was working on yesterday in Drive. It bridges the gap between the chatbot and your personal data within the Google ecosystem.
Okay, that's a huge amount of capability being rolled out. But we always have to address the limitations, the caveats. Even with all this advancement, Google is still wrestling with some of the core problems inherent in all large generative AI models, aren't they?
Absolutely. That's crucial context. Google has definitely made strides, but they have not magically fixed these fundamental issues. The two major ones that always need mentioning are, one, the persistence of encoded biases.
From the training data.
Exactly. Biases inherited from the massive, often messy, human-generated data they're trained on. And two, the tendency for these models to hallucinate.
Meaning they just make things up?
Confidently invent facts, sources, details that sound plausible but are completely fabricated. It's an ongoing challenge for the entire field, not just Google.
So what about the legal and ethical side, especially around using all that public data for training? If a business builds an application using Gemini commercially, does Google offer any kind of protection if they get sued?
It's a murky area. Google does offer an AI indemnification policy for its paying cloud customers. The idea is to shield those customers from certain types of lawsuits related to copyright infringement or other issues arising from their commercial use of the generative AI services. But it's definitely not a silver bullet. That policy has specific conditions, limitations, and important carve-outs. Businesses and developers really need to read the fine print and understand what is and isn't covered. They can't just assume blanket protection.
So caution is still needed.
Absolutely. And related to safe use, Google does acknowledge the need for guardrails, particularly for younger users. They offer a specific version of Gemini for teens that includes additional safety policies and filters, along with things like an AI literacy guide for educators and parents.
Okay, good to know. Finally, let's briefly touch on the money side for developers wanting to build on this. The API structure. How does that work?
For developers accessing the main models like 1.5 Pro, 1.5 Flash, 2.0 Flash through the application programming interface, the API, it's essentially a pay-as-you-go system based on tokens.
All right, tokens. Can you break that down simply? What is a token in this context?
Think of tokens as the basic building blocks of text for the AI. A token isn't quite a word. It can be a whole word or a part of word or even just punctuation.
Okay.
As a very rough rule of thumb, about 1 million tokens is the equivalent to maybe 750,000 English words, give or take.
And you pay per token.
You pay based on the number of tokens you send into the model. That's your prompt, the input tokens, and the number of tokens the model generates back to you. That's the response, the output tokens.
So input and output are costed.
Yes. Generally, input tokens are cheaper than output tokens. And the cost per token also varies depending on which model you're using. Pro costs more than Flash, for instance. And sometimes the complexity of the task. It's all about resource consumption.
So if I send in a long document to summarize lots of input tokens and get a short summary back, fewer output tokens, I'm paying mostly for the input, which is cheaper per token. Efficiency matters.
Exactly right. It incentivizes efficient prompting. And zooming way out again to the wider industry picture, while this might look like just Google versus OpenAI versus Meta, the landscape is actually getting more cooperative, or at least complicated in some ways.
How so?
Well, the most fascinating recent development is the confirmed discussion between Apple and Google.
Apple, talking to Google about using their AI. Apple, the company famous for controlling its entire stack.
Confirmed talks. Reports suggest Apple is seriously considering integrating Google's Gemini models, potentially alongside models from other third parties like OpenAI or Anthropic, into its upcoming Apple Intelligence Suite for iPhones and Macs.
Wow. What does that signal?
It signals a potentially huge strategic shift. It suggests that even the biggest players, like Apple, might recognize that relying solely on their own in-house AI models might not be enough to compete across the board globally. They might need to offer users access to multiple best-in-class models to provide the most comprehensive and capable experience. The walled garden might be getting some gates.
Fascinating. Okay, so wrapping this up for the listener, for the learner trying to make sense of it all, what's the key takeaway here? Gemini isn't just one thing.
Not at all. That's the main point. It's an incredibly aggressive, wide-ranging spectrum of specialized AI models. They're natively multimodal, which is a big leap. And they range from those colossal cloud-based engines like Pro and Flash down to the tiny, efficient, localized Nano running right on your device.
And Google is weaving this spectrum into the very fabric of practically everything they offer.
They absolutely are. It's becoming the underlying intelligence layer.
So maybe connecting this to the bigger picture, what's a final thought for our listener to chew on?
Well, think about this. Given that these smaller, specialized, but increasingly capable models like Nano can run entirely on your device offline with potentially very strong privacy safeguards built in, it raises a really interesting question for you to consider. How might this clear trend towards highly functional local AI that lives and works directly on your phone or computer, how might that change your relationship with huge centralized cloud-based services? And maybe change your assumptions about data security and privacy over, say, the next year or two.
The tension between power and privacy.
Exactly. That tension between the sheer power you get from massive cloud-based multimodal models and the desire for ethical data sourcing, privacy, and control that comes with localized AI. That's really where the next big technological and ethical battles are going to be fought. It's something worth watching very closely.
That is a fantastic context to leave our listener with. Thank you so much for guiding us through this incredibly complex, fast-moving landscape today.
My pleasure. It was fun to break it down.
And thank you, as always, for listening to The Deep Dive.